Hello, everyone. Welcome to, good afternoon. Welcome to the seminar Unlearning Failure by Niveditha, Sethumadhavan. Just one second. I just want to make sure we are good to go here before I start. Okay, perfect. We are good. So, one moment. Can everyone hear me? We're all good? Okay, great. So, it is so lovely to see everyone here today. Thank you for joining us. I am Rita Strangis and I will be your room moderator today. I currently work for the YWCA Niagara region in the PR and communications department. The event is an initiative of the YWCA Niagara region, a local organization that stands for gender equity and gives a voice to those who are marginalized in our community. This session today is sponsored by Penn Financial Credit Union, so thank you, Penn Fi. And let's start off by testing out the chat box. Introduce yourself in the chat and let us know how you are rising. As you guys are doing that, I want to begin this seminar by acknowledging the land on which we live and work. This is a traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabes people, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon WAPUM Agreement. Today, this is a gathering place and is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. And acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendships of Indigenous peoples. Another reminder is our community guidelines. I want to remind everyone that our Niagara Leadership Summit for Women is designed to facilitate a safe and open space for all participants. By participating in this session, you are agreeing to follow our community guidelines. You can find those guidelines on the left-hand side under the Important Documents tab. We are responsible for making an inclusive environment, and we appreciate your support in doing so. And now, I have the honor of introducing Niveditha Sethumadhavan, who will change your perspective on failure and will show you that you must not let your successes get to your head, but also not let failure consume your heart. Know that most times, especially with the current state of our world, things do not go as planned, and that's perfectly fine. Born in India and raised in the UAE, Oman, Kuwait, and Nigeria, Niveditha became a Niagara resident in 2016. She is a communications professional deeply passionate about development and social advancement. Previously having served in various advocacy and stakeholder management roles, she's a translator at TED and serves as a director of fundraising of the Foundation for Rural Youth Empowerment. Post-graduating, she founded her own freelance digital strategy firm, Yellow Cup Consulting. As a proud Brock alumni, she is a recipient of the prestigious Spirit of Brock Award, President Sir Jataya Award, and had the honor to be elected by her peers to serve as the Vice President, External Affairs of Brock University's Student Union. I am so excited for this, and I hope you all are too. Thank you all again for joining us. And we will have a Q&A period the last 10 to 15 minutes. So if you have any questions for the lovely Niveditha during the seminar, please share them in the chat box and we will address them later on. Or you can send them to her privately by clicking her profile, which is under the details tab down below, and you can connect with her there. Don't forget to share your experience in learning today's on social media and tag our fantastic speaker. So, are we ready? Let's begin. Over to you, Niveditha.
Thank you, Rita, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Niveditha Sethumadhavan, and my pronouns are she and her. It is my absolute pleasure to be speaking to you at this year's Niagara Leadership Summit for Women. I would also like to welcome you to my seminar, Unlearning Failure. I hope you've been enjoying the summit so far and are taking part in all of the wonderful features that this platform has to offer. I am also especially excited to be going right after the diversity and inclusion panel, and I am pretty sure that you are all pretty pumped and thrilled right after that one as well. How amazing was that? While I may be speaking to you from a screen today, that doesn't mean that we cannot interact with one another. On your screen, there's a column to your right that you're already probably familiar with. And during my seminar, I will be posing some questions that will enable you folks to participate, providing you with an opportunity to interact with me as well as with the other folks who are present with us here today. So do look out for those questions when that chat feature pops up. Now, I would like to start off by walking you through what the next 45 to 50 minutes are about to look like. So let's dive right into it. We are currently in the welcome and introduction section. So here I am introducing myself. Thank you, Rita, once again for that amazing introduction. I want to talk about a little bit and set a preface to what I'm here to tell you about today. And I want to do that by talking to you about what failure is and what our definition of failure is. I then want to go into how we can unlearn what we already know of failure, because what we're all learned is sort of the same thing. And let me tell you today that that exactly is not what's right for us. I then want to talk about how we can collectively rise through a pandemic, followed by which I want to talk about what responsibility each of us have in helping and ensuring that each of us rise together through this time as well. Finally, I have some concluding thoughts and some fun and exciting messages I want to share with you, after which we can end with a question period. So, with that being said, let me tell you a little bit about myself. Again. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, my name is Niveditha, and I moved to the Niagara region a little over 4 years ago to pursue post-secondary education from Nigeria. So I went to high school here, and then I took two planes, flew right over to St. Catharines. This past June, I graduated from Brock University with an honors degree in business communication from the Faculty of Social Sciences. And I'm currently back home in Lagos, Nigeria, safe and sound with my family, which is where I'm speaking to you from today. Right after I finished my academic journey, I founded my own digital design and strategy firm called Yellow Cup Consulting. I now help organizations and individuals, big and small, with their communications and marketing needs. During my time in Niagara and at Brock, I had various opportunities to get involved in a wide range of activities, clubs, groups, experiences, meet people from all over the world, meet people who are from Niagara. And each of them and each of these experiences have taught me something new and helped me discover something about myself. Kind of what I'm hoping to do with you here today. So here's 3 fun facts about me. Number 1, I have lived in 9 different countries growing up, and I speak 4 different languages. Number 2, I love heights. It's a weird fact, but I do love heights. And number 3, something that you probably already know, I got to be the vice president of a multi-million-dollar organization at the age of 21 for an entire year. That's pretty crazy. This was right here at the Brock University Students' Union, where I served as the vice president of external affairs. Now, just like everyone in this Zoom, I've had my fair share of ups and downs in a variety of forms. While growing up in different countries sounds exciting and fun, and while it certainly was, it came with its own set of unique challenges, setbacks, and some really, really tough lessons that I didn't really want to learn. Assimilating to anything different from the ordinary is tough, especially when you are pushed out of your comfort zone time after time. And this kept happening to me ever since I was 2 years old. As a woman of color with certain very sharp opinions and my mindset on getting things the way that I want, with a mix of other people telling me what I can and cannot do, none of this was made any easier. Be it in the workplace or at school, my inherent need to be good and the best at everything I did or wanted to do put an insane amount of pressure on me to succeed. And I know that a lot of you share the same emotion as well. Because what I was fearing at the end of the day was failing and failure. Now, instead of sharing some Tumblr-esque to-do list on how you could maybe finish a 4,000-word essay the night before it's due, or go an entire week with 10 hours of sleep while maintaining a social circle, I thought, let me share with you something that not a lot of people talk about, but fascinatingly is something that each and every single one of us face and fear: failure. So now all of this got me thinking, why is it that we are so afraid of failure? Why is it such a big deal? Why do we attach so much emotional, physical, as well as psychological weight to this concept of failure? Today, I would like to share with you folks a vital lesson and a few that have taught me how to thrive beyond what I thought I was capable of, in hopes to inspire you to take a chance on something that is probably lurking in the back of your mind. A lot of the things that I will be sharing with you today are not rocket science, nor is it something that I have completely discovered on my own. But these are things that I see holding most people back from accomplishing their goals or rising to their desired outcome. Let's try and change that today. No matter where in the world I went, who I met, or what I did, what new thing I tried, one thing seemed to always chase me. A question that we are trained collectively to think about when we do anything really. When you are challenged, when you are learning something new, when you push yourself out of your comfort zone, and especially sometimes when you chase something that you really love. And that is, what if I fail? Before I move ahead, I want to hear from you. Let me start off by asking you all this. How many times in a day do you let the fear of failure or the thought of not achieving something to your maximum potential cross your mind? A, never. B, once a day. C, a few times a day. Or D, every time you do something that you're unfamiliar with. I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes to kind of think about it, see what other people are talking about, and type in your answer on the chat, and then we can move on from there. Interesting. So I see a lot of people saying that it's somewhere between A and B, somewhere between where you never think about it, which is pretty amazing, in which case through this presentation, now you're supposed to tell others not to think about it. And sometimes I see people saying that it is something when they're unfamiliar. That's very interesting. And you know, that's very interesting because why is this a reality? Why is it that we fear failure when we do something that we're unfamiliar with? Why are we so afraid of failure? Now, if you were to ask the average person why they haven't accomplished their goals yet, the fear of failure will always crop up as the #1 block to success for most people, most of the time. But why is this? There are quite a few reasons, and I'm going to go into some of them today. Interestingly, they have nothing to do with how you were born, where you were born. If you come from low self-confidence, high self-confidence, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or even how risk averse you are. It has everything to do with the fear of failure being a socially acceptable behavior or not. First, let's make sure that we're clear on our definition of failure before we can unlearn it. So the Cambridge Dictionary defines failure as the act of someone or something not succeeding. Very, very vague. So let's break this down further. What kind of fear do we actually fear the most? Most fear of failure is short-sighted, meaning that we don't generally fear things that we've done after years and years of hard work, practice, or repetition. What we really fear is failing to do something right the first time, things that we're unfamiliar with. And a lot of D answers. Now, this bears repeating. What we really fear is failing to do something right the first time. If you read that sentence again, you will begin to see why the fear of failure is really not a useful fear at all. In fact, it's kind of a neurosis that keeps us from attempting to accomplish anything. Is it really reasonable to expect someone or ourselves or anyone for that matter to do anything right the first time around? Absolutely not. Most people require several attempts, years of practice, loads and loads of repetition to get things right. Yet we go on expecting ourselves to do it right the first time we do it. Crazy, isn't it? Now let's talk about some examples here. Let's take applying to medical school. Now, this is a true testament to the fortitude a doctor inherently possesses. The common misconception of those contemplating a career in medicine is that it is only for those with the greatest intelligence, the ones that never fail. Uncompromising determination, formidable resilience, and inexhaustible compassion with a moderate level of intelligence to have a successful medical career. Now, this includes tons and tons of failure. Medicine is one of those few professions described as both a science and an art. And only true scientists and artists know that adversity is only a learning experience waiting to be realized. This adversity is failure, which now is applicable to any route. The road to becoming a doctor is long. Often, sometimes it feels like there is no end in sight, but reaching that destination will be the first of many gratifying achievements. The same thing applies to pilots, to chefs, to various other professions. We can now see these examples trickle down in our personal lives as well. So now let me ask you another question. When was the first time you were introduced to the word failure? Was it when you were 4 to 5 years old? Was it when you were in primary, middle school, or elementary school? Was it maybe when you were in college or university as a young adult? Or was it when you were an adult, maybe at your first job, maybe at your second job? Again, I want you to take a little bit of time and type in when it was that you were first introduced to the word failure, and then we can move on. Interesting. So Rita tells me that we're seeing a lot of B's. That's interesting. So by the time, when you are walking right into middle school, you're walking right into primary school, and you're doing a lot of new things, and you're exposed to different teaching mechanisms and different methods. I see some people saying that it was when they were a young adult. That's also interesting. Sometimes university and college are some of the most trying years of our life when we're put through so much rigorous academic work, or be it any extracurriculars or jobs that we take as well. Interesting. And I see a lot of people also saying 4 to 5. Now that's really, really young. It's interesting, by the age of 4 to 5. And what I really want to talk about is, why are we seeing all of these answers in this range? Have you ever really wondered when or how this realization took place? Well, if you went to school or had any experience with professional education, then you have almost certainly been trained to fear failure from an early age. This is why we see a lot of 4 and 5-year-olds. We see a lot of examples from middle school. We see a lot of examples from high school. And here is the reason why. Getting things right the first time is the only thing that is rewarded in most schools. Getting the wrong answer is punished in a variety of ways. We see people getting low grades. We see people getting scolded, contempt from teachers and peers. We see people put on probation, getting kicked out. There's just a lot of negative consequences to not getting things right. See how unreasonable this pattern is starting to build up? Now, failure is certainly not seen as a prerequisite for success, but it's getting right the first time really the way that entrepreneurs, for example, succeed? Absolutely not. As an entrepreneur myself, there have been numerous weeks where I have spent just being absolutely confused, in total dismay. And to be honest, I still don't have everything figured out. When it comes to starting a business, any successful person will tell you that the fastest way to succeed is to jump in, make things happen, and be okay with failing repeatedly. Fail fast and fail often is something that you've probably heard in a lot of entrepreneurial circles. However, in high school, where you're taught to jump in and make things happen, even if that means you didn't get it right the first time. Was this the case in primary school? Was this the case in middle school? Was this when you were younger, maybe 4 or 5? Were you rewarded for not being afraid to fail? And I'm going to repeat this again. Were you ever rewarded for not being afraid to fail? Probably not, unless you went to some really cool school or you were extremely lucky to be a part of some really cool experience. But in most traditional schools, most school children learn early that if they fail, they get a big red F on their paper and all the unpleasantness that comes along with it. This means that by the age of 18, you've been effectively trained to fear failure. You've certainly not been trained to embrace failure as a key step in learning. If you went to school for 12 years, this means you've basically been in training to fear failure for not 1 year, not 2 years, but 12 years straight. How insane is that? And if you went to college or university, we can extend that a couple more years. Now, does this mean that there's no hope since you've been steadily scared and indoctrinated to fear failure from the age of 4? Absolutely not. Because if it did, there would be very few people out there who would experience any kind of success. Although highly successful people are not the norm, they do exist. But how do they do it? Did they never experience failure? Did they never talk about it? Did they never show it out? Were they blessed with a magical existence? Now, before I reveal those secrets to you, I want to hear from you once again. The question that I would like you to ponder on is, if you could do anything or be anything you wanted without the fear of failure, how would that impact the decisions you make in your everyday life? You can take a piece of paper, you can write it down, you can type out your answer, and you can throw it in the chat box. And I'm going to repeat this once again. If you could do anything or be anything you wanted without the fear of failure, how would that impact the decisions you make in your everyday life? It could be your personal life, it could be your family life, it could be at work, it could be anything. How would it impact your everyday life? We're going to have a couple of the answers come in, and then we're going to move on. I do want to thank everybody for their participation. I am just so excited that this is going so well. So as everyone's answers are coming in, I thought I'll tell you what I would do. And, I was introduced to this question a couple of years ago by my dad when I was applying for undergrad. And he asked me, what is it that you want to become in life? What is it that you want to do? And I sat there and I thought about it. And I thought, you know what? I would love to be an astronaut. If there was no fear of failure, if I knew 100% that, I'll get hired by NASA or by any other aviation company of that sort, that I would want to be an astronaut. I loved space since I was a kid. And, if I took the tests that were necessary, if I studied for it, if I did a major in space or science, then maybe I stand a chance. Now, the answer is I did not become an astronaut. That's not what I do. I do something completely different now. But it's interesting to think about what it is that you truly want when you're not scared of getting something. I see a lot of people say that they would be more direct. That's interesting. When you know what an outcome is going to be, it's so much easier for you to alter your actions according to that. And people say that they would still do the same things, which is amazing, which means that you are indeed taking the chances that you're supposed to take and learning from whatever happens from the outcomes. And I see someone say that they would worry less and do more. And that's actually pretty incredible. And I see someone who also wanted to go into space aviation. Maybe we should connect after this and maybe we can do something and, call NASA. That sounds like a great idea. But I also see someone say that they would be happier getting to dance for a living. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit because since the age of 3, when I was taught failure, I learned how to dance. And I come from an Indian classical and Bollywood dance background. And my whole life, I have been learning, I have been professionally trained, I have been competing. Even when I was at Brock, I had the chance to dance and compete. And when I finished my undergrad, I started taking dance lessons. So I actually teach children in my building how to dance currently because of the pandemic. We're all locked in together. So I think what's interesting is that There are things that you love in your life and you don't have to give it up just because you can make a profession out of it. And as Trisha was saying yesterday, there are things that we don't put on our resume, and things that we love, things that we care, things that we are passionate about, I think are things that we should continue regardless of if we can make it a career or not. So whoever you are who's dancing, I hope you continue dancing for a living. Awesome. So I see that there are a lot of varied responses, and I see that a lot of this is about doing more and worrying less, saying yes to more things. Now, a lot of people would do anything and everything they wanted if they were not afraid of failure. And I see that a lot of answers are things that people really, really want to do. Somehow, somewhere along the way, all of those highly successful people that I was talking about earlier are always risk-taking and always winning. And somehow, somewhere along the way, they had to unlearn the lesson to fear failure. They learn to go after what they want, regardless of how they were probably going to feel when they were going to fail. And I know that's a really tough thing to do, but that is something that we must all learn. The interesting part is these people have also learned to embrace failure as a part of getting what it is that they want out of life. Somewhere along the way, something changed for them. Well, great, you can say, Niveditha, but we can't all be them, right? Wrong. We in fact can. Most of us are still stuck, myself included, and this is something that I'm working on every single day, with a big, ugly fear of failure staring at us in the face whenever we try to break out of our reality and we try to go after those big goals, try to do something new, something different. However, there are a few things that you can do to start breaking that circle effective immediately and start unlearning the fear of failure so that you can finally go after those big dreams, those small dreams, things to worry about less, be less anxious before it's too late. These are, and we will go into each of them in detail so you can take notes at your own pace. Number 1, doing more things for the first time. Number 2, building a circle of resilience. Number 3, being resourceful. Number 4, understanding that things take time and patience. And I'm saying that slowly because things really do take time and patience. Number 5, being open to things that may not go your way. The pandemic being one of the biggest examples. Number 6, detaching your ego. And number 7, a surprise reveal that I will be getting to when we get to that slide. Doing more things for the first time. Doing more things for the first time allows you to make yourself familiar with your ability to deal with not succeeding. While it's an uncomfortable zone to be in, it is a zone that we must get comfortable with, as it allows us to practice better, enable ourselves to be better at our next try, and just have foresight that we once lacked. Unlearning failure begins from within you. Failure has the capacity to strengthen you by providing you with a new sense of direction, one that you might not have seen before. It's kind of like a compass that just comes out of nowhere. It teaches you value. The fun part is it kind of helps you get rid of fear. Because here's the thing, failure is an opportunity. It is an experience. And while it may be and will be unpleasant, it is simply just that, an experience. We as humans have this tendency to tag everything as a good experience or a bad experience, but it's all about how we look at it and how we categorize and put things into perspective. Number 2, build a circle of resilience. It can be anything. It can be things, books, people, anything that you can lean on when you need to. Things happen all the time. What is going to keep you grounded are the things that remain constant throughout those changes. As someone who moved a lot in my life, this is one of my favorite ones. From going to a new school, to starting a new job, meeting new people, having to move to a new house every couple of years, I needed things that would make me resilient. And one of those things for me was my family. Your circle of resilience can be anything. It can be your family, your close friends, a routine playlist, working out, watching Hocus Pocus, literally anything that helps you feel more like you. In a time when you necessarily aren't feeling like yourself for any reason. Your circle of influence and resilience helps you remain grounded, allowing you to stand right back up after however much time you need to adapt or experience or cope with whatever situation that you are in. One of my favorite quotes on resilience that is on the screen is by Oliver Goldsmith, and that is that our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. Also the theme of our entire conference. Number 3, be resourceful and willing to put in the work. I know, I'm telling you to put in the work. What can you learn from this? What can you do differently? Do you need to acquire some new skill, learn a new lesson? Who can you learn from? Sometimes it is so important for us to look at others who have been on the path that we are trying to be on, or just learn from other people's experiences, even if they're different. And most importantly, what do you have to do next? Often we don't know what we're capable of until when you try and fail, despite the failure, you realize just how amazing you truly are and how much you can accomplish. And this is not for you to tell the whole world about, but this is for you to realize internally. Failure also builds resilience. Developing a thick skin to tackle life will serve you very, very well. You can do more of what you want and less of what other people think you should do. And isn't that a phenomenal feeling? It allows you to go after your dreams and not let anything get in the way of what you want. All of those sound pretty amazing to me. Number 4, understand that it takes time and patience to go where it is that you want to go. Rome was not built overnight, and so weren't you. Give yourself time to get where you want to go and make peace with the fact that things will happen, and things will happen at their own pace to make you turn around, start over, or even let go. Be patient through everything that it takes. One of the biggest challenges in today's world is that we have the dire need, unconsciously, to compare ourselves to what others are doing, and this is kind of magnified as a result of social media. We don't see people posting about their failures on social media. While LinkedIn may be a very new exception to that, you don't see a lot of people talk about their failures. You see those happy posts, you see all of those happy things that happen once after so many other instances or failures or whatever it might be that people have already gone through that they may not necessarily have wanted in the first place. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. And that comes from the guy who created a light bulb. Number 5, be open to things not going your way. Really, what is the worst that can happen? Often failure is not the opposite of success, something that we have been taught, again, since a very, very young age. It is simply a path that you don't want to take. That does not make it the opposite of success. We are so conditioned to believe from the inception of our lives that not succeeding, not completing, or finishing something is deemed failure. But it is not exactly the case. In fact, failure is equally as important as success. Number 6, detach your ego. One of the worst learning mistakes that people make is attaching their ego to their failures and their successes. Your ego is what will lead you to believe that you have no natural gift for something that you really love, so it just isn't worth pursuing. The ego wants to look good and feel justified, leaving you feeling pretty horrible at the end of the day. When you learn something new, you must detach from the outcome, from the result, especially at first, when it's something new that you are unfamiliar with. Everyone is bad at something first. Even the most talented among us were terrible when we first started. So attaching your ego will only bring you more pain. Therefore, detach your ego. And now, the surprise that you didn't see coming. Believing in the value of failure. You must see the value in failure. Failing is a better alternative to regretting. Not to sound cliche, but would you regret not knowing what would have happened if you tried to follow your dreams? If you wanted to be an astronaut, if you wanted to dance more? Or would you rather learn and grow and become successful through failing on your way to the top? At least with the failure option, you are that much closer to achieving your goal. And going back to what I said earlier, it is just that, another option, another path, another experience. Failure also gives you true confidence rather than false confidence. Successes that are easy often leave lots of room for failure. We let it get to our heads. because the success has made you feel that nothing could go wrong. And that's your ego talking again. Failure is a powerful tool for understanding and even being more successful. Regrets, however, don't provide opportunities. Failures do. Appreciate your opportunities, even if they're small, and make every single step count. Most importantly, acknowledge your mistakes. Learn what went wrong. Become stronger, more resilient, and wiser. Like the yellow sticky note on your bathroom mirror, never stop trying. You will regret not trying much more than you will failure. With that being said, failure is simply a stepping stone. It is almost necessarily, in fact, mandatory to fail from time to time. Some lessons that we can learn from failure are experience, knowledge, resilience, growth, and value. Things that will truly help strengthen you, build you, and prepare you for any challenge, even the ones that you have no idea that are coming. Now, it's your turn again. After hearing me for a little bit of a while, knowing what you know now about the interaction of the fear of failure in your life, how willing are you to go after something you were previously afraid of? A, still not at all, which I completely understand. B, you're thinking about it a little bit. C, you've almost made up your mind. And D, you are ready to go and conquer. I'm very excited to see what your answers are going to be. This is incredible. I see that a lot of people are ready to conquer. And I know some people haven't made up their mind, but I am loving the fact that there are so many people who are ready to conquer. That is absolutely amazing. Once again, thank you all so much for your participation. This really is brilliant. And for all of the people who are ready to conquer, that is so exciting. And I am honestly looking forward to the things that you are now going to do, having now understood what this relationship is that might be holding a lot of us back from doing what it is that we love or what it is that we really kind of want to do. And for those of you who have almost made up your mind, but not yet, it's awesome that we're still even getting to get together like this, even if it's virtual, given the circumstances. And I think it is very important to acknowledge that the times that we're presently in are very unique. And that's why I want to talk about rising through a pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has been something. One interesting thing that I noticed was the surge in the number of small businesses and local community and grassroots organizations doing things to help one another. Now that the worst is in front of us and we're living through it, with us not being able to leave our homes, be away from the ones that we love, or have the chance to see every day, or do whatever that it is that we wanted to do for basic survival, this pandemic has challenged us to rise, giving us no other option other than to rise. I encourage you to embrace this wild time and make the most of it, no matter how uncomfortable this may be, even if it is not the normal that you are quite used to. But with that being said, we're not in this alone. We're all going through this turbulent and challenging time together, which is why I believe that now more than ever before, it is time for us to be champions within our relationships, our communities, and most importantly, for each other and for ourselves. What can you do and what should you do for people around you? Life is not just about your successes or your failures, but it is also about the experiences and the successes of others. After all, we only rise by lifting others. As individuals, we need to embrace the realization that taking risks and failing are often the essential moves necessary to bring clarity, understanding, and innovation. I often refer back again and again to someone's previous mistakes to celebrate just how significant that was when I myself am learning about something new. If we foster an environment in our classrooms, in our workspaces, in which failing is natural and a necessary component in making progress, then we allow ourselves, our students and professionals to release their own genius and share their authentic ideas, even or especially when those ideas aren't quite polished or perfectly formed. What shocked me was when I Googled how to help others through failure, and there were no answers. In my opinion, there is a dire need for a systemic change for failure to be retaught and recategorized in our societies. We must help each other rise rather than getting pinned against each other. So I ask you to grab someone in your life and just tell them what you learned today, and tell that person to do the same thing, and see how the magic unfolds. As we near the end of our seminar, I want to leave you with a few things. Shocker, but there is no such thing as failure. There are just experiences and simply our reactions to them. What we really fear is failing to do something right the first time, and that's not really fear at all, that's just trying. Therefore, having unlearned what we thought failure was and recognizing now for what it is, failure really is not the end of something. It's just an experience gained. It's a new path encountered that you may not have gone through before, and that may have taught you something new that you need for another challenge in the future. It's like a PlayStation game. You collect all of these tools, and when it's time for that challenge to pop up, you use it. You get closer to success. The more times you try, the higher your probability is of being pushed closer to success. It helps you be resilient and build resilience for the future challenges that are to come, because everything in life is weirdly connected. And finally, it gives you a new perspective on success, one that you might not have had before. And I know I've talked a lot about failure, but success is incredible. Who doesn't like winning? Who doesn't like succeeding? We must also plan for what happens after we succeed, because there's always a takeaway that we don't necessarily take away from the experiences that we have been through. Now, many of the people who know me can vouch that The Office is my favorite TV show. If you haven't seen The Office, it is a show about a paper company in Scranton, Pennsylvania, with a regional manager who has terrible social skills. He just wants to be everybody's friend and get invited to all the office parties. Michael Scott does everything from parkour, starting his own business, buying a house without understanding his finances, and much, much more. While I am not advising you to do any of those things after the seminar, there is a lesson here. Michael Scott does not fear failure. You still love him just the same, if not more, for his ability to learn from what happened, apply it to his life, laugh about it, and then move on. Even if failure seems like an integrated part of your personality today, it always wasn't there for you. And how do I know that? Just like everyone else on the planet, I bet at one point you were 1 or 2 years old. And at that age, you had no fear of failure. In fact, you didn't even know what anything was. I can say with confidence because if you were afraid to fail, you would not have walked, and you wouldn't have run. Somewhere inside you, there is a you that has absolutely zero fear of failure and wants to try to do everything. Access that brave little person inside you once again, and you can achieve anything. Do remember that failure isn't fatal, but failure to change might be. Finally, there's a poem that I would like to share with you today, titled Dear Younger Me. Dear younger me, I wish I could even begin to describe how amazing you are doing and how far you're about to go. Things may seem bleak, the future uncertain, and belief in self fading. However, the best is not even close to being here. I promise you, it does get better, brighter, and more fun. Yes, there are the ups and downs, and another up and another down, but notice everything. The little things, the big things, the things that make you smile, the things that make you angry, and the things that keep you agile. Dear younger me, you do know this. The climb will always be steep, with plenty of space for people to join and for you to stop, turn around, and soak in this life. Stop, don't rush, breathe. Make sure to always have extra fuel for not just yours, but others' dreams. We've come so far, and yet we are still so far away from what feels like a fading yesterday. The promise of tomorrow is exciting, but dear younger me, never forget that through all of this, you're still rising. We all have our ups and downs, but it is also our responsibility to follow our heart, mind, and soul, and not aid in our inability to believe in ourselves, hold us back from ever achieving our full potential. When I was applying to speak at the Niagara Leadership Summit for Women this year, I wanted to reflect on my own leadership journey. The things that I put on my resume, the things that I didn't put on my resume, the things that eventually found their place, and the things that didn't. I was thus inspired to write this poem, so thank you for allowing me to share a part of me with you today. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for being here and for being such a wonderful audience. It is a true pleasure to have the opportunity to address you and talk about something that we don't really talk about enough. I invite you to connect with me on all of my social media platforms, and I look forward to hearing how you rise. I will now be more than happy to take any questions, and over to Rita.
Thank you, everyone. That was absolutely amazing. You are amazing. I hope everyone enjoyed this seminar. I personally am so inspired. You are such a strong individual, and your words of wisdom and you sharing that poem was just so inspiring. And I'm so glad you trust in us to say that poem to us and have the courage to speak to us. I know we can all agree that we have had failures in our past. And I hope this seminar really showed everyone that it's okay. We are human beings, and that's why we're here today, to rise together. So we are taking questions right now. I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll leave the seminar thinking a little different about failure. So feel free to use the chat box and write some questions you have for Niveditha. And yeah, so just waiting on some questions. Okay, so one of the questions we have here is there any advice for people who commit first and chicken out later? Very good question.
What a phenomenal question. So yes, I do have some advice. I do have advice because this was me for a lot of the things that I wanted to do. So I think the hardest thing for us is, again, not being happy with potential outcomes for the decisions that we take or for the actions that are required from us. A lot of the times when we commit first, it's because, you feel energized, you're ready, you have all these hormones in your body that are telling you to do something. It could be anything really. And then somehow, somewhere that fizzles out. And I think with that, what is most important is to touch back into the feeling of what made you feel that way in the first place. There should have been something that triggered a positive response for you to go after, chase after, and end up committing. Because when you talk to yourself, that voice within you is so strong and is so powerful. And sometimes our intuition knows a lot more than we know. And this is, again, when we talk about our ego wanting to feel justified, that's your ego telling you to back out. Don't listen to him or her. Don't listen to them. Just make sure that you go back into that feeling of what made you want to commit in the first place. And I'm pretty sure that once you're able to access that voice inside of you, things should be smoother from then on out. Thank you for that question.
Another question we have here coming in is, can fear of failure also be motivating?
That's a wonderful question. And the answer is yes and no. And I'm going to tell you why. So I feel that it can be motivating because sometimes we don't want the worst to happen. The worst is really, really bad. There are circumstances and situations where the worst is a terrible outcome, one that is not ideal for our lives. And in those cases, I think, yes. But I don't think on the opposite spectrum that something that you are afraid of should motivate you, because a lot of your motivations are things that you want to do, things that you are passionate about, things that need to be done that are good for you. Because let's be honest, we don't really want to put in the work to do things that are bad for us. So I think as much as being nervous about what an outcome might be could be some type of positive energy that you can channel, I still think that we shouldn't be afraid of what is going to happen and kind of scare ourselves with an outcome. So I think as much as it can be something that you think is positively motivating you, I wouldn't recommend seeing that as a positive factor and rather seeing the experience portion of it as something that is more positive.
Thank you. So we have Lori. Thank you, Lori, for your question. Her question is, how do you respond/coach those who blame others when they fail?
For sure. That's an amazing question. And this is what I have to say for that. I myself, there have been so many instances where I blame my personal failures or a group failure on somebody else. And here's the thing about that. When something happens to you, the only person that you need to worry about in that moment is you. And our impulse action when we're drowning is to try to get to the top and try to grab a lifeboat or a life jacket. And that's what we do when we blame others. I think as much as, yes, there might have been somebody who would have done something or an instance or an organization, something might have gone wrong somewhere, but I think it's very important for us to realize that the only person that we are responsible for, whose actions we're responsible for, are ourselves. And it's funny because we're not responsible for the outcomes that happen to us, but we do have to take responsibility because it is your next steps that are going to determine how it is that you are going to get yourself out of this mess. So while blaming is something that we do in the temporary to try to get it out of us, in the long run, I think what we must focus on is kind of bringing the attention, the onus, and the potential back to ourselves. Because when things happen in our favor, we're positive and we're energized about it. And when things are not that great, we must take responsibility for what has happened. So I hope that helps. Thank you for that question.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question. So, is there a personal incident that took place in your life where you were going through something that would traditionally be deemed as failure, and how kind of did you learn from it?
That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking. So this is one of my favorite stories that I love sharing over and over again. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this story. So when I was entering my senior year at the American International School of Lagos here in Nigeria, I wanted to run for house captain. And so all of my life, whichever school I went to, I was never allowed to run for house captain for any leadership role, traditional leadership role, because I never got to stay there for more than 2 or 3 years. And so I was up against this other girl who had been here her whole life and she knew everybody at the school. And I had just moved to the school a year before. So I was so nervous and so scared, and I prepared the speech and I was so ready. And, I delivered my speech. Everybody clapped. She delivered her speech. Her speech was not as great as me, but, she did her piece. And then she won. She won house captain, and I was absolutely devastated. While I knew it was going to happen, I was crushed. As a 17-year-old, this is one of the most crushing things that can ever happen to you. And, I went back and I looked at the votes and I was like, oh, she beat me by just a couple of votes, just like 2 or 3 votes, and I tried to tell myself that, you were so close, you did everything right. I voted for myself too. And I was just still so devastated. And I thought I had failed. When I had finished high school at that point, the only leadership role that I had on my paper, on my resume, was I was president of my dance team. So while that is something that is not seen as academic or is not seen as something that is so kind of high impact, it really is, but that's not traditionally seen as something as a very intense leadership role as compared to like house captain or school president. I was devastated and I thought, I'm never going to get the opportunity to do any of this again. I am just so over it. There's just no way. So over it. In my 3rd year at Brock, I was really involved with the Brock University Students Union, which is the student union on campus that represents all of the undergraduate students at Brock. I was the chairwoman of the council, so I was the woman with the gavel up there, like Judge Judy. And it was election season. And I had heard that there were candidates who were running for the role of Vice President of External Affairs, which is a role based in equity, which is a role based in social advancement, and one that has huge implications for the culture at Brock University and for the students who are there currently and for the ones that are to come. I thought to myself, you know, the only election I've ever ran, I lost, I didn't win, and this is going to be in front of 17,000 people. Why am I going to make a fool out of myself? I'm just not going to run. My family pushed me. They said, do it. Submit your signature form, submit the forms, just take it step by step. It was intense. It was tough. We had 2 debates. I was up against 2 men. I was the only female in that category, and it was brutal. Just getting through those 2 weeks was brutal. But at the end of the day, I won that election. And that night, I called my mom and I said, Mom, could you have imagined if I didn't run this election because I was scared of failing like I did in the previous one that I ran? I would not have had the amazing year that I did learning and working with literally members of parliaments, members of provincial parliaments, advocating for students across the province of Ontario, across Canada, meeting policymakers and decision makers at the federal level. And that kind of changed what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Had I let that one experience of failure that happened to me when I was in high school determine my path for the rest of my life, I wouldn't even be speaking to you today. So Rita, thank you once again for this question, because this is a full circle story for me. And all of those experiences and all of those failures have in a way built this capacity in me to learn from it, laugh about it, you know, make a fun story about it and share it with you so that you can look back at some of those experiences in your life where you've probably gone through something similar, but now can channel that energy into doing so many more positive things and achieving your dreams and goals. So thank you.
Thank you, Niveditha. That was amazing. So many impactful words of wisdom. You are so wise beyond your years. But sorry, the sun's literally like shooting.
Golden hour, I love it.
It's like shoot. I'm like, yeah. So anyways, thank you all for joining us today. You guys made the seminar even better and more interactive, and sharing your own stories was amazing to hear as well. I hope you all are enjoying the Niagara Leadership Summit. It is so special to have everyone in one space together. So unfortunately, we do have to end. We could stay here all day, I know. But anyways, the next session up next is volunteering, ignore your passion and re-energize your career with the wonderful Tracy Geoffrey. Or feel free to explore the platform and connect with us or other attendees using the chat. Go around, go to the virtual booths. We have some group discussions that are blowing up. They're so amazing. And yeah, that's about it for today. Don't forget to hashtag NLSW2020 and tell us how you think about the seminar and what your thoughts were, and if you're enjoying the Niagara Leadership Summit. So go forth and continue to rise together. Thank you everyone for being here today, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of your weeks.